welcome to Samwise. I'm your host, Sam, and as always, I'm here to guide you through Middle-earth, by way of New Zealand, to answer life's most pressing questions. Right now, as I'm recording, the sky outside looks a little bit like the dead marshes. Fires just north of where I live here in LA County have colored the sky quite gray and turned the sun orange. And thankfully, me and the rest of the folks at After the Hype are all safe. No one's been affected in our team, but we know people that have been, and so I'm going to have some links in the show notes of places where you can donate either to help support the firefighters that have hopefully by the time you're hearing this contained the fire, as well as helping the displaced people and animals affected by this horrific tragedy. With that, let's move on to questions. Our first question today comes from the Samwise email address, sam.wise.ath@gmail.com, and it reads, Dear Samwise, I started developing romantic feelings for a friend, but never acted on them as she was in a long-term relationship. I eventually became friends with both her and her boyfriend. However, now they've broken up and I'm not sure if I should act on those feelings. I certainly don't want to ruin the friendship with either of them. Should I act on my feelings? Should I ask her out? Please help me, Samwise. Thanks. This is a pretty tough question and, unfortunately, a common one. And I think it demands that we take a look at Boromir. He acted on his feelings, but he did it without being honest about them in Fellowship. He allowed the ring to take hold of him despite the friendship that he tried to form with the hobbits. This dishonesty, not necessarily him acting on his feelings, is what cost him his life and broke the Fellowship. Had he been more upfront with his friends and given them a chance to act in good faith, things might have played out differently. With that in mind, I think you should be honest with your friend about your feelings. Ask her out and give her a chance to respond. Friendships, like fellowships, they're based on trust and they're based on honesty. If you're holding in these feelings, no matter how smooth you think they are, they will manifest, and in really unhealthy ways. You have to give your friend the chance to be a friend in return. Trust her to act on her feelings in the same way that you're acting on yours, while still caring enough about the friendship. If she is open to the idea of a relationship, then the next step is also going to be for the two of you to be honest with her ex and your still current friend. Again, this all comes down to acting in good faith and giving the other person a chance to respond because you trust them. If she's not open to a relationship, then you have to just let it go and move on as friends. No ulterior motives allowed. The important thing is to act honestly. I can't stress this enough. And to put them all out there so that everyone can move forward feeling as good as possible and in good faith and on a foundation of trust. Good luck. This next question came from the Samwise Google Voice text line, and it reads, I employ about 35 people in my business. Most are under the age of 27. How do I keep them off their cell phones without taking their phones away from them and treating them like little children? So, again this week, we come back to Boromir. He was easily distracted by the ring, so Aragorn, good boss that he was, encouraged him in extra tasks, like teaching the hobbits sword skills. Can you perhaps assign side work or extra sales incentives to some of your employees? Busy people can't check their phones. Another strategy to encourage responsibility that we've actually brought up when discussing bad children comes from Gandalf. After Pippin's curiosity got the best of him in Return of the King, Gandalf separated him from Merry. Are there certain people who spend more time on their phones when they're scheduled together? Are there people who kind of distract one another? Maybe putting them on different shifts or sections. I'm not totally sure how your business is structured, but if you can find ways to separate them or assign them to different committees or tasks, maybe you can solve some of the problems in that way. In both of these cases, Aragorn and Gandalf, they noted potential triggers for bad behavior and diverted or removed them, rather than setting hard and fast rules. I hope that maybe some of these strategies work well for you. Let me know.
Hey, Sam, it's John. I've got a question for you in the podcast, if you're available. There's been a lot of talk of problematic figures coming back, making their comeback. Louis C.K., John Lasseter, things like that. And I was curious if Lord of the Rings had anything to say about such a topic. Thank you very much.
John, you actually used your real name. What? I'm so excited. And this is a really great question, and one that Lord of the Rings actually has a ton to say about. Most people in this trilogy who place their own thirst for power over the lives of others are straight up killed. Those that don't die face some serious, and I mean like dire consequences. Even Boromir, who we established earlier on in this episode, since he keeps coming up, has mostly a good heart. He dies because he tries to attack and steal from his friend. Being influenced by the ring, it turns out, does not exempt you from your own bad actions. Gollum can also attest to this. He spent centuries bound to the ring, having murdered his own cousin for a taste of its bullshit. He became a shell of a creature, pathetic, barely functional, unable to connect with others even when given a chance. And then he died for it, burned alive in the hellish bowels of Mount Doom with only the ring and another dude's finger in his mouth. Horrible. Similarly, Saruman, he, once a good wizard, chooses the pursuit of power over thinking of others, over thinking of the world in which he lives, and he gets imprisoned by Ents. He then falls to his rather gruesome death from the top of his big stupid tower. It's almost like power is an illusion and we should instead be kind to other living things. And in the case of people who don't die, well, they're ghosts, so they died. But even in the case of the deserting ghosts, whom Aragorn releases from their limbo state, they faced centuries of being stuck between life and death. They may have been absolved of their wrongdoing, but it was only after serious time had passed. They still served their sentence and paid their penance before being forgiven. People like Louis C.K. and John Lasseter, they aren't just creeps with personal problems who wronged one or two people. The women they harassed not only lost out in that moment of dignity, not only lost the value of their consent, but they lost out on career opportunities. In Lasseter's case, he was a figurehead for creating a whole culture, a whole company that discriminates against women and people of color that then goes on to make movies that influence children. This sort of thing is so much more than quote-unquote just assault or just harassment, as though that's not enough on its own. But it's a systemic way of viewing people as less than, of stymieing their growth for personal gain, for fleeting moments of power. And that sort of sick thinking, that sort of corrupt and awful, like, ring-influenced thinking, it demands serious, life-altering consequences since they altered the lives of others. People like John Lasseter and Louis C.K., they don't just get to waltz back into their lives and into their careers. They don't deserve the power that they were trusted with, and there has to be some kind of restitution in order for there to be any sort of forgiveness, or in order for us to move on as a society and feel good about it. I'm also glad you asked this question, because on a metatextual level, the Lord of the Rings trilogy bears scars and trauma of its own. Initially, Harvey Weinstein, monster of monsters in this Me Too age, was executive producing this project. Before New Line granted Peter Jackson and company these films, Weinstein wanted to make just one. He, at that point, thought he was a powerhouse visionary who could steamroll this labor of love into his gross vision. Boy, do we know better now. While the movies did get made as a near-perfect trilogy, they still bear the scars of this encounter, with his name in the credits. Not unlike some of his victims of sexual harassment and sexual assault and rape. And this isn't to say that their trauma is the same as credits on a film. I'm just drawing a parallel, and I understand that what they went through is so much worse. But the question then becomes, why should someone who makes the world an uglier place get so many second chances? When Sauron got a second chance at power, he wasn't suddenly nice. He didn't suddenly learn some lesson. No, we have to get people like that out of the way. We have to make space for a new world, a better and brighter one, led by people who have the common sense and the initial impulse to be decent. Those are the kind of people that we should make room for in this world. Thank you, as always, for listening. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes or follow us on Google Play if that's where you listen to your podcasts. If you have a question or something that you'd like me to answer or any feedback at all, feel free to email me at sam.wise.ath@gmail.com or dial 608-561-2755. Those will also be in the show notes along with some links that I referenced. Be sure to check out the other After the Hype Network podcasts. On Monday, there's Venture Bros, a Venture Brothers podcast. And on Thursday, there's the OG After the Hype, which I often co-host. You can also check out articles every Wednesday and Friday at athpod.com. You can also follow them on Instagram at athpodcast. You can follow me on Instagram at SammyJane613. And you can follow my amazing dog Laddi at Saint_Laddi. That's Laddi. I would also, and this is a little selfish, and I'm sorry to bring up another movie on a Lord of the Rings podcast, but I would also encourage you to check out Grinch while it's in theaters. It's part of my day job, and I'm really proud of the work that my team did on it. With that, I will see you next week. Hit me up with your questions. Bye!